Hey everyone, my name is Gabby and I wanted to share my thoughts with the world. Not sure anybody will listen, but if you are listening, then I hope you can share with me a little bit about what you think. But a big problem that I've had lately is with Christians. And now mind you, I'm a Christian, right? Like, I believe in God and I believe in Jesus, and I want you to understand that, but I don't want you to discredit me because of my belief. I heard a quote the other day, and I thought it was really interesting. Gandhi said something like, and mind me, like, I'm sorry if I misquote him, but he said something of the sort that he doesn't have a problem with Jesus, but he really has a problem with Christians. And I kind of relate to that. And you might say, how could it be? I mean, you were one of those judgmental folks who stand behind religion and who are just so submersed in this high moral ground. And no, I want to break that today. If anybody listens to me, I want you to know that though I am a Christian, no, I'm not in a higher moral ground than anybody else. I'm not better than anybody else, and neither is any Christian. And if they've given you that impression, if they've looked down on you in any way, I want to apologize on their behalf. Because the Jesus that I've come to find as a Christian is nothing like the Jesus I thought existed when I listened to the media or when I saw it in actions of people. I'm like a very, very observant person, and I come from a very broken home, which resulted in me being actually an atheist for most of my life, which is kind of funny. If you told me Jesus existed probably like 3 years ago, I would punch you in the face, tell you to F off, and leave me alone. I'll tell you that you're crazy, that, science doesn't prove that, and that, like, who are you when I've been through so much pain in my life? And it's funny that I can sit here today and tell you exactly the contrary of that. And I want to do so by sharing a little story with you from the Bible, if you don't mind, and also talking to you a little bit about my personal perspective. And it's okay if you disagree. Everybody has an opinion, but I do ask that before you disagree and before you get angry at me for my beliefs, know I respect yours and I understand where you're coming from. Because I was very, very angry at Christians for a long, long time, and I want to tell you why I changed and what it is that I encountered. And I want to do it in a respectful way because I don't think that we ought to be offending one another. And I want to reason with you because, I mean, contrary to what you might believe, I think some Christians, or at least I hope I am, I'm a reasonable person. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about who Jesus is versus who we think he is. And I want to start with this idea of the moral high ground that we so encounter people talking about. Like, I thought that if you were a Christian, you were very, very judgmental and you thought you were better than everybody. And I thought that this is a God who, one, doesn't exist because how could he expect so much of people, or how could he love so much and be so judgmental? Two, I thought this was a God that couldn't exist because he didn't align with science, and that's what like teachers have told me all my life. And I've always loved science. I hope to become a doctor one day. I'm studying for that, so for me it was like a juxtaposition of ideas, and if it didn't align with my train of logic, then it couldn't be true. So, starting with a high moral ground, I want to address a little bit of a story that I really love in the Bible. And I'll tell it to you. And you can look it up if you so desire, but it's Luke 7, and it starts in verse 36. And I don't want to read it to you because I find that if I read it to you, you'll totally blob off, but I want to tell it to you. Because the story of this woman is very similar to my story, and maybe it may be similar to yours at some point. So, Jesus, right? This is when he's alive. And now, mind you, I also want to add, if you would do your homework, like, and maybe research whether Jesus really existed or not, like whether some people believe he was a prophet or he was just a man or he was the son of God. Even atheist scholars won't dispute the fact that Jesus existed as, a human being. Now, whether he was the Son of God, that's where the debate occurs. But please understand that he really did exist. And these accounts that I'm about to share with you, they're in many, many different letters. Many people witnessed this, and because they didn't have TV or phones or anything that we do, they wrote it. They wrote it down. And this tradition comes from many, many years, even, prior to, writing letters is pretty modern at that point, but like if you heard anything about like hieroglyphics and stuff, like when they painted the walls, that's dating back to like even before the society. But so I want you to understand that, he really existed as a man per se. We can have common ground in that. So now this story I'm about to tell you is written by Matthew, Mark, John, and Luke. So 4 accounts of the same story. So if you want to read it, I am going to refer to it from Luke 7, like I said. And here's the story. So pretty much Jesus gets invited to a dinner in a Pharisee's house. A Pharisee was a religious authority of that point. And now mind you, the religious authorities of that day did not like Jesus. They thought he was a fake. Some scriptures even refer to him as a drunkard. What else? They tried to, demoralize him in any way, catch him in any way, trip him up in any way. That's what religion did. Religious leaders of that day are charged, and this is pretty indisputable as well if you research, they're charged with the actual crucifixion of Jesus. And now I think there's also common ground in the fact that people who don't believe that he was the Son of God also believe that he was a man and that he was crucified on a cross. So Jesus gets invited to this religious leader's house, and he shows up with his disciples. Now his disciples were the guys who followed him everywhere. They believed in him, and I think we can call those guys Christians. There were those back in the day Christians. They believed that he was the Son of God, and they followed him everywhere. So the story pretty much is going to tell you that a certain, and I'll quote from the Bible, immoral woman, and some translations will call her a wicked sinner, actually, which it's just to emphasize that she was a city woman, and the inference there is like some biblical theologists will think she's like a prostitute. And this woman, she came and she was weeping, and she's a very broken woman. And as I mentioned, she had a lot of what you would call sins. And she knelt down at Jesus's feet. She broke a bottle of perfume. It was the most expensive thing she had. And she began to wipe his feet with her hair. And she was weeping for her faults and for, I imagine, like everything that's ever happened in her life. And she was so broken. She was the most broken woman at that point. But she was at his feet. And what happens is that his disciples, and it's funny because it's not even the Pharisees necessarily to go, and the guys who hated him, the religious guys, they're not the ones to raise up questions necessarily. The Bible tells us that one of his disciples in John 12, it was one of his disciples that were indignant at this breaking of such an expensive bottle of perfume. They were like, what is she doing? She's wasting her time. Like, what is she doing? Type of thing. And Jesus said to them, Let her be. She's anointing me for his burial that was to come. So here's a picture I want you to get. The Christians are wondering, what is she doing? They're so judgmental. The woman, the sinful woman, she's broken at Jesus' feet, and he's receiving her. And she is the one to anoint him. It wasn't a religious leader who anointed his feet. It wasn't a religious leader that gave him the blessing. Do you get that? It wasn't a religious person. It wasn't the Christian, quote unquote, the goody follow Jesus. It was the wicked sinner who anointed his feet. It was me. It was you, if you so choose. Because we are the sinners, right? Isn't that what people think? That we are sinners, that we do things wrong, that we have like Thomas Hope said, like an evil at our core. It's us. If we so choose, we get to anoint his feet. He doesn't mind us. He wants us. And the judgmental people, they didn't get that honor. And that really touched me, because that's when I realized, wow, he is the Son of God, and he can love me through my brokenness, not through judgment, but through my brokenness, because I'm a very broken person, and I am a very sinful person, according to these standards that people think that they have to reach, or that they put up a front, because we all fall short. The Bible tells us that we all fall short of the glory of God. And it's good that we fall short, because if everything was perfect, and if we were perfect, and if our actions were perfect, we wouldn't know how good God is. And so I want you to understand that if you have a problem with Christians that are judgmental, know that Jesus had a problem with them too. Don't judge him for it. And a lot of times, if you read the Bible, he will call them hypocrites. He does. He didn't like them. They made one of the only times that Jesus lost it. Okay, he got kind of crazy. He started throwing up chairs and going just real angry guy. Like, he just lost it. Was when people, the religious people, were using his temple, his church, as a way to make money. Read that story, please. Read that story. Because what I found is that, like I told you before, Jesus, my God, is nothing like what the media portrays or what people portray. Please, 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 I beg you, do not get that idea of him. I'm a debate kid, like in high school at least. I did a lot of debate. And one thing that we learned in debate is that you can never, ever, ever bring up something that you don't have evidence for, an article, something that backs it up. That's beyond you. And I think I failed at that. When I discredited Jesus, I did it in relying on what people said. I didn't go to the source. And I just want to encourage you, and I know I'm running long, I'm sorry, but I just want to encourage you to go to the source. Figure him out. And now, I know I don't want to talk too long, but like I just feel so compelled to do this. Like, if you are like me in my second issue, which was the fact that things don't align with what science has taught me. And remember, I'm a science student. I'm in college now, and I'm going for science. And my first year of biology, I remember this so clearly. You go through, like, obviously evolution, and you talk about how life arose on Earth, and you study something called the Haldane-Operan theory, and it says that life arose spontaneously. Now, mind you, it's a theory, meaning that it cannot be proven. And one of the questions my professor said, I will ask you on your next exam, and you will not get it right by any means, was, it is now true that life arose spontaneously? And the answer to that would be false, because it's not, there is no way that we can know that life arose spontaneously. Ask any biology PhD and he will tell you, I don't know. I don't know. So, but we believe in it, right? And they're believing in something that they're not sure of. And I would argue with you that takes faith. It takes faith for you to believe in this idea that life arose spontaneously, because it's something that you don't know. And a lot of times with science, you'll find that, like, like if you study a little bit of it, you'll know that the problems with life arising spontaneously, it's like they believe that we were covered in water initially, and how could it be that like complex organic molecules, which is like your like initially I think they thought it was ammonia and stuff. How could these organic molecules form in water if they believe it formed via dehydration or condensation? Or like, how did self-replicating systems come to play, which and I don't know, I don't want to confuse anybody that doesn't know the stuff, but like self-replicating, like mitosis, like cell division and stuff, like how did that occur? And then there are questions that we believe in, like, and it's funny because I nowadays that I know God, I see it in such a different manner. Like we talk about in biology, we talk about the cell theory, and it's that all organisms have cell. All organisms to ever form would have to have had some type of cell structure, and life begins with cells. And it's like, well, where did cells come from? How did they begin to form exactly? And when you think about that, and all organisms have cells. That's indisputable. Like if you look in a microscope, you'll see cells, and though they vary from plant to animal to protists and fungi, you will see that like they have similarities there. And people will say, well, that's due to the fact that we all came from one place, and I agree, we came from one place. We came from God, and I see his signature. I see his signature. Though things vary, the masterpiece varies, whatever it is, the signature is always the same. Just like in paintings, from like Picasso or Da Vinci and stuff, the signature is the same. And I also like think of, like, now I think of trying to think of things that I see the Lord in, and it's just so much that, but I can think of the conservation of energy. Like physicists will argue that energy has a fixed amount. We believe that. We know that. Energy is a fixed amount. It can't be created. It can't be destroyed. That's called the law of conservation of energy. And when you study that, you know that there's a fixed amount, and it will either be from potential to kinetic, from kinetic to potential, but it'll always be fixed. And it's always been that way. They say it's always been that way. And I always think of like the Bible, and if you read Genesis, it says, like, first there was God, and God has always been. He's Alpha and Omega. He's always been. And it reminds me of the fixed amount of energy we have, because he's always been there. And I just see things aligning. And now that's just me. Please, please, please don't be angry at me for sharing that with you. I understand if you disagree, but I just see the same signature constantly. Instead of seeing things that disprove him, I see things that just prove him even more. He's the greatest of scientists to me. And please, just consider that if you just hate Jesus because you hate Jesus, and if you just, don't have a reason, because the Bible also says that some people will just hate him for no reason. I would say there's a spiritual thing going on, and that God can use you for such great things. And then there's not one person in this world that he doesn't love, not one of you. If the wicked sinner was the one he chose to anoint him for his burial, how much does he want you and I? So if you're, what Christians would turn their nose to, like if you are a drug addict, or if you had an abortion, or like whatever it is that you feel that would keep you from God because Christians have told you that that is wrong, I would ask you to kneel down in Jesus' feet and really, really give yourself to him. He'll love you like no other. And if you still are not ready for that, if you don't believe in that, if you're like, oh my gosh, this girl's so annoying, I can't, I would encourage you to do the same thing I did. When I didn't believe in God, I had to read his word to be able to say I didn't believe in him. I knew the Bible back and forth. I knew the historical context for questionable things and why what was said. But if you don't like Jesus, I hope there would be a reason for it, and I'll respect your reason. But if you don't like him, I pray that you go into the New Testament, you pop it open, and use like a simple version of it, because I know that there are some versions that are like die, whatever, and weird words. Use like I recommend like New Living Translation. You can get a free app on your phone. See who he is for yourself. I was really surprised. It changed my life. So I encourage you to do the same, and yeah, God bless you guys.